Okay, so the name of our action is login, and again, it has to return something. We're going to return content. Now I'm going to hit F6 to reload our application. Come back over here, refresh. We now have a login action. So, how are you feeling so far, Steve?
Not too bad. I mean, except for me not actually knowing C sharp. I'm following the logic of why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and create an area. So what's an area? You think of an area like a namespace. It's a way to, well, group its own collection of views, controllers, and potentially models as well. It's a way to group it both on the file system and in the URL. So if I right-click Simple Blog, I can go to Add, and I can say Area. So remember, right-click the project, Add Area. Then we get an area name. The name of our area is going to be Admin, because this is going to contain all the controllers that we use to add posts, modify posts, and add users. So I'm going to add this area, and what do I get? Well, a couple things happened. First of all, an areas folder appeared underneath admin. That obviously corresponds to the name of the area I made. Next up, we have another group of controllers, models, and views. We're not going to be talking about views in this video, so I'll go ahead and collapse that. Finally, we have an area admin registration. The area registrations will automatically be discovered by ASP.NET MVC, and they effectively allow me to namespace a group of controllers and views into a special name, such as, in this case, admin. I want to separate all my admin code from all my front-end code. I mean, that makes sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like if this application is a house, this is a room.
Right.
Gotcha.
First thing I'm going to do is I really don't like how that's formatted. It just really bugs me, sorry. I'm also going to rename admin to underscore or lowercase admin. Again, I just prefer anything that has anything to do with generating URLs to be lowercase. Unfortunately, that won't happen all the time, but we can try. Okay, we'll see we have a register area method. This is where we register routes that are specific to this area. I'm actually going to leave this default here. This happens to be very similar to the default route I deleted earlier out of our front end, but in this case I'm going to leave it. The interesting thing about this route is that it's admin slash, first of all. That comes from our area. The reason why our area is namespaced is simply because, which I'm also going to make lowercase, the reason our area is namespaced like this is because we created an area called admin, so all the URLs are going to be through admin. Now we'll see some interesting syntax. We have controller wrapped with curlies, action wrapped with curlies, and ID wrapped with curlies. These are parameters that the ASP.NET routing engine can extract from the URL in order to create data that can be passed into our application. But you'll notice it's interesting that we have a variable controller and a variable action and a variable ID. You'll also notice that in our defaults, we have action equals index. So let's see how this route works. I'm not actually going to create any controllers just yet. I just want to show you some examples of how this route works, because it might be a little bit magical to some people. First of all, this route will only be matched if it starts with admin, as you can see there on line 13. Next, we have to do a slash, and we can put in anything we want, actually. We can put in that. It doesn't matter. ASP.NET will match that. But what it'll do is it'll match this. This corresponds to the controller, and it'll use that as the name of the controller. So in reality, the default route is a convenience, because it allows me to not have to manually specify the routes to every single controller in action. Instead, I can follow what's called a convention. So the convention in this case is I can say if I wanted to go to the new action on the posts controller, I can simply do admin posts new. How does that work? Well, we have the admin, which is required, again on line 13. Our controller is pulled out of the second thing divided by slashes, which is going to be the posts controller, so that's what it's going to become, without even specifying it in the defaults. Then, our action is pulled out of the final parameter we passed in, and is used for the action for routing purposes. So this route will correspond to the new action on the posts controller in the admin area. And it does that because of the way this is defined here. What do you think action controller pair would happen if I went to admin posts?
I don't know. Is it going to not do anything?
It will do something. For a route to work, it needs a controller and an action. But you'll notice I didn't supply an action here in this route through the route pattern. However, the route defaults specify that action equals index.
So it'll default to index.
Right. So admin posts will default to the index action on the posts controller. Next up, we have ID. ID is just an arbitrary anything, really. So if I said admin posts edit /43, that doesn't have any impact on the way that this route is routed, but it's a parameter that I can pick up from the action. We'll see an example of that later. Okay, so we have admin, but again, it's going to be 404ing because we don't have any corresponding controllers. So let's actually go ahead and create a posts controller on the admin area. Now, this is going to be a little bit fun. Actually, no. Let's start off with users controller. Let's see one that'll work first, and then let's do the one that'll break. Okay, so I made basically I created a new class called users controller. I added a public action result index method to it that returns the content of users. That now means I can go to admin users and I get users. Alternatively, what's the other way I can access this action, you think, Steve?